Is Derek Carr a significant upgrade to Andy Dalton? What a hot take question here from the boys over at Off the Bench Overtime 104.5 ESPN. I asked this question in a YouTube short, one of my most popular YouTube shorts. I asked this question about 2 months ago, and people were pissed. People have been calling me crazy at least once a day in the comments to that short. So it's funny because we talked about it for a long time, and now the local and national media are catching up to us. Per usual, we're a couple weeks to a month ahead of them. So now I kind of have to say, do I want to double down on what I previously said, or do I want to change things now that everyone else is saying it? So I'm gonna go ahead and make my case again on how I stand with the Andy Dalton versus Derek Carr thing. Now, way back in the past, I said, is Andy Dalton and Derek Carr that much difference for what it would take to get Derek Carr? At that time, we would have to trade like a third-round pick. Then we'd have to sign him. He wanted like $40 million a year guaranteed. The contract was being rumored to be anywhere near $200 million. None of that came to fruition, okay? None of that happened. We actually got Carr on a pretty good deal, which I explained in the last video. A pretty friendly deal, especially when you consider Daniel Jones got $160 million. We got Derek Carr for less than the Giants got Daniel Jones, and Daniel Jones sucks. Don't ever forget that. So with that considered, yes, I think Derek Carr is a significant upgrade over Andy Dalton. Here's the deal. Andy Dalton and Derek Carr in a vacuum, in a very small microcosm, in a very watered-down situation, they're going to give you pretty much the same results. What I mean by that is a drive-by-drive basis. You know, if you give me a 6-game sample size, stuff like that. But Derek Carr does have the ability to possibly reach another level, to possibly catch fire, play like an MVP, possibly be an MVP level kind of quarterback, and you could possibly chase an NFC title with Derek Carr. Andy Dalton can't do that. Andy Dalton is not going to catch fire. He's not going to be an MVP level player. He's not going to transcend. He doesn't have another gear. He doesn't have another level. What Andy Dalton is going to do is keep things safe. He's going to keep things predictable. He's going to keep things basic. And he's going to allow you to win somewhere between 6 and 9 games. All right? That's the deal. Derek Carr, way more upside. And with this teamish friendly contract, a lot of upside, not a lot of risk. So let's see what the boys have to say on the matter.
It's that time. Time for some New Orleans Saints Carr talk. As the further and further that we get from this Derek Carr deal, the more the quarterback market continues to take shape. I feel like this will be a good deal.
It is a good deal. And we were proven it's a good deal with how the quarterback market is starting to shake out. We can see that. All right. When it first happened, you know, obviously I've had my thoughts on Derek Carr. But now that I've seen the deal, now that I've seen what other people are going for, a la Geno Smith, a la Daniel Jones, Geno Smith got what, 3 years? Someone in the comments correct me. I think it was like 3 years, 100-something million. Is it 57 million guaranteed or something like that? That's crazy. Okay? That is crazy. So if the Seahawks are doing that, I'm totally cool with us getting Derek Carr for what we got him for.
I'm wrong. Maybe Derek Carr is on the downswing. Maybe it wasn't Josh McDaniels' fault. And maybe this all blows up in my face. And that's all definitely in the cards. But you know, I'm feeling pretty good about it. Does this do anything for you, Jake? And I want to be clear, do not misconstrue what I'm about to say. I am not saying that the Saints and Rams situation is similar.
Saints and Rams with Stafford?
Matt Stafford left and went to the Rams from the Lions, right? I'm not saying that because
it's not even close. First of all, that was a deal, right? Like that was a trade situation. It wasn't a walk. It wasn't a walk situation. He didn't get cut by the Lions. Like it was a completely different thing. The contract is completely different. The Rams mortgaged the future for basically 2 years. The second year, Stafford got hurt, but they mortgaged the future with all the deals, with the Jalen Ramsey deal, with the Stafford deal. They got a Super Bowl, and now they're paying for it. Literally. Now Stafford's deal is terrible. They want to get him off the books. They're going to want to get Jalen Ramsey off the books. I want to say he's like a $24 million cap hit for the next 3 years. That you can't do that. You certainly can't do that when you're not very good, like the Rams are not very good. So it's nothing. It's not even close to the Stafford deal. It's a completely different situation. The Carr deal, the Carr deal at this point now is just a pretty market average free agent signing. That's really all it is. It's not. I don't think it's very far off from what a lot of these guys are going to get. I mean, obviously it's not. If Daniel Jones is pretty similar, Geno is pretty similar. We haven't seen Garoppolo, but he may be a little bit below. But for all intents and purposes, it's nothing crazy.
Because it's not. The Rams had the best wide receiver in the league, the best player in the league in Aaron Donald. Oh, and they paired him up with like Von Miller on the.
Oh, he's saying, I see. He's saying that it's not the same because it's not like, all right, Stafford's coming in, so we're expected to go to the Super Bowl. I will say this. No, it's not the same because the Rams are a little bit further ahead in what, they were a little bit further ahead than we are right now. They did have the best defense in the league. They did have a little bit more, but it's not crazy. It's not crazy far off, especially if you think the Saints have a top 5 defense in the NFL. I don't think that. Some very basic level in ESPN analytics show that we were the 5th best defense in the NFL. I don't think so. I think we're probably closer to like 11. Somewhere in there, I'd have to go check the DVOA. But if Mickey Loomis and the Saints front office do go get a bunch of players, if we do go fill in some gaps in the defensive line, if we go get another wide receiver, if we go get another running back, if we figure out the Kamara situation with his legal troubles, if we get some defensive help in the secondary, if that stuff happens, there's no reason. Look, the NFC I think is pretty top heavy. All right, you have the Eagles, and then what? Like, let me know in the comments below, who is the second best team in the NFC? The Niners with Trey Lance or with Brock Purdy? We don't know. A Trey Lance led Niners team. I'm pretty comfortable saying the Saints are right there. The Dallas Cowboys, we know what they're going to do. Mike McCarthy's going to Mike McCarthy. Okay, they're trying to figure out their whole situation. They have a new offensive coordinator. They're not getting any younger either. The Vikings, please. The Giants, please. The Bucs are out of it. The Panthers are out of it. The Falcons are out of it. I mean, really sit around and think. The Lions, they weren't even a playoff team last year. The NFC is super top heavy. It's the Eagles and then everyone else. So I don't think we are that far off from a few players away from being in that mix of one of the 4 best teams in the NFC.
Like the Rams were a much better roster when Stafford made the move than these Saints were. What is interesting to me is if you look at a per 17 game basis, it's a little nugget that was in New Orleans on Football article here. If you look at a per 17 game basis, Jake, Stafford's time with the Lions and Derek Carr's time with the Raiders, identical. I mean, quite literally identical. Matt Stafford and his time with the Lions, per 17 games.
I can't wait to hear this.
Completed 62% of his passes, 89.9 quarterback rating, averaging 4,600 yards, 29 touchdowns, 15 picks. Derek Carr, 64% of his passes, 91.8 quarterback rating, 4,200 yards, 26 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. So, all I'm saying is we saw with Stafford a massive leap forward. I don't expect that leap forward.
I'm not a Stafford guy. Certainly not. I don't think Stafford's ever been that good. But I am a little bit shocked by those stats. I'm shocked by the yardage because I know Stafford, I think he had a couple 5,000 yards in there. And it's crazy for me to believe, unless I'm missing something glaringly obvious of why his per 17 would be, why Carr's would be so similar. There's something there, I got to think about it more, but I am kind of surprised at that.
Certainly don't expect the team success that LA and the Rams had, but maybe you get that step forward from Derek Carr as well.
I just can't wait to see how it goes, and I hope Derek Carr sets the NFL record for touchdowns and yards. I hope he does.
He's going to break is it Manning or Mahomes?
I hope he does it. I hope he does it, and I hope that I'm sitting here being like, God, I am a big dummy. Look at what this has done. Truly, I feel like that.
Yeah.
But
I agree. I want to be wrong. I never am, but I want to be wrong. I want Derek Carr to come in, and I want Derek Carr to show everyone that he is not the same quarterback that he was in Vegas or Oakland. He is another guy. He's learned, he's grown, he has a chip on his shoulder, he's embracing the city, I want him to come in and do that. I want him to come in and say, this is the next evolution of me. This is who I really am. I want him to give us 3 to 4 years of magic. I would love for nothing more than that. But honestly, and I was telling this to a commenter, I was replying, and he had the same idea, but I would be more surprised, because that would mean that Dennis Allen and Pete Carmichael are functioning as a head coach, offensive coordinator tandem. I have more faith in Derek Carr than I do in Pete Carmichael and Dennis Allen. Derek Carr, it's kind of funny because, he's the quarterback, right? Like, he's the guy. He's the captain of the city. He's the mayor of the city. He's the king of the universe. But when it comes to the Saints, I'm okay with Carr. Like, I'm pretty comfortable with Derek Carr. I'm all in on Derek Carr. I'm not comfortable with Michael Thomas. I'm not comfortable with the Alvin Kamara situation. I'm not comfortable with Pete Carmichael. I'm not comfortable with Dennis Allen. I'm not comfortable with our interior defensive line. Like, Carr is where he is now on the team, and I'm like, all right, check. Cool. We're good. Sure. All good. Check that one off the box. We are done with quarterback. Let's move on to the next. That's where I'm at. So every time we talk about Carr now, I'm thinking, like, this is all fine and dandy, but Dennis Allen is still sitting on the sideline. Pete Carmichael is still trying to figure out how to plug in his headset on the sideline. Alvin Kamara is still, dodging cases. Okay, so the quarterback is taken care of. We now need to go ahead and move on to the rest of the roster.
We don't know until we get there. Mm-hmm. Okay, and now we're in that point where we're trying to find stats like, why do I give a damn what him and Matthew Stafford's comps are? That's not the same
we have like
team.
6 months till the season starts.
That's what I'm saying.
And
I'm not hating on you to bring it up
because figure out things.
But that's what we do. And we're going to have this conversation 1,000 more times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But also, like, if we're getting into that conversation, Saints quarterbacks last year completed 66% of their passes. Derek Carr, 60.8.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yards, 39.69 for the Saints quarterbacks last year.
Yes.
3,500 for Carr.
There we go. This is another point I made. And I made this a couple videos ago. I said, look, guys, say what you want. But last year, Derek Carr with Devontae Adams, with the NFL's leader in rushing yards, Josh Jacobs. That's a fact. He had the number 1 rushing yards, running back, however you want to phrase it, in the NFL. He had a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. Yes, he had a bad defense, but he won 6 games. Andy Dalton, with all the shit that he did, with all the stuff that the Saints had to go through last year, they won 7 games. Those are stone cold facts. Everything Jacob just said, stone cold facts. The Saints produced. Their motley crew of quarterbacks produced. And with just Chris Olave, Alvin Kamara had the worst season of his career. Michael Thomas had, 3.5 quarters of a season. And then it was a bunch of Rashid Shaheed, Keith Kirkwood, and Chris Olave. Like, that motley crew outperformed Derek Carr, Devontae Adams, and Josh Jacobs. So, I don't know. I do have some questions.
24 touchdowns, 14 interceptions for both.
So it's funny.
The same exact one.
It's funny.
So let's have that conversation then. More yards, better completion percentage.
Hell yes. So
for the other quarterbacks that played last year.
You think this works against me when you sent that the other day, or Mario sent that? Somebody sent it. You sent it. It got me more excited than any other piece of information that's been put in front of me, because I know for a fact that Derek Carr is a better quarterback than the guys you had last year. And so if they put those numbers up in that Carmichael system, well, then I think Derek Carr is going to juice those numbers up even further.
That's interesting, because like I just said, why? Just because he's physically better? Like, why are we assuming that Derek Carr will just elevate all of that? Like, that part, Because then you have to figure out like what was wrong last year, because now you got to take the defense out of it. We're not talking wins. We're strictly talking yards. We're strictly talking completion percentage. We're talking all that stuff. So why? Because if he couldn't do that with Devontae Adams, Josh Jacobs, if he couldn't do that with them, why is he going to do it with what the Saints have? I'm interested to see what T-Bob's going to say here.
For a fact.
Yes, if Andy Dalton and Jameis, yes, I know for a fact that that Derek Carr is better than Andy Dalton and Jameis Winston. I feel completely comfortable saying that. And so if they put those numbers up, and check out this other thing I noticed. I don't know how I did it before. Pete, what's his last name?
Carmichael?
What? Say it again. Say the beginning. Carmichael. I mean, match made in heaven, dude. It was there from the beginning.
Woo, man. Ladies and gentlemen, I mean, this is a time where we have to sit back and we have to sit here and say, y'all are so lucky that y'all have me, that I can produce the content that I can produce. I can give you the gold that I can give you. And you're not relegated to, you know, to these kind of puns. I mean, we operate on a whole different level here. And this is a moment where everyone should be in the comments thanking me that I put my stuff out so that Pete Carmichael isn't your only option.
And it was right in front of our face. Pete Carr, Michael, David Carr.
Derek
it's all going to work
Carr,
out.
David's brother.
Brutal.
D Carr. Okay, same thing. Same thing. He's better than his brother too.
I mean,
I know for a fact he's better than his brother.
His brother didn't really have a chance to drop.
See, this is one of those things where it's like, I know why David Carr was bad. David Carr got sacked like 80 times a season. He led the NFL in sacks, I think, every year he played in the NFL. He was absolutely hung out to dry. Okay. So, I mean, Mel Gibson thought what was happening to David Carr was a little too violent. You know what I'm saying? But I can't really find a reason. Honestly. I know I said all the stuff at the beginning of the video where I said, you know, David Carr is better than Dalton on a long stretch. He gives us more upside. He gives us more this. He gives us more that. I can't give you a reason. I am stumped, if you will. I'm stumped as to why the Saints could produce more from the quarterback position last year than Derek Carr could with the Raiders. Let me know in the comments below. Maybe you have an answer. I mean, this is probably the first time in however long we've been doing these videos that I'm straight up, I can't even fathom it. I can't even give you a theory because it should have been way better. And I'll tell you this too. This is something I did not like about Derek Carr, is that there was a couple of games of Devontae Adams where he had like 2 catches, 1 catch, 0 catch, something like that. Like, go back and look. He had a couple of games where he was completely non-existent. How's that possible? How's it possible that a guy that good, that's supposedly his best friend, right, that went to the team for him, how's it possible that Derek Carr could just completely forget about him? That worries me.
By the time he hit that third foot, he was getting hit.
Tony Baselli never played for the Texans. Come on, Tony. But no, I actually, it is funny. That is my spin zone on those numbers that you sent the other day, is that Derek Carr, that makes me even more confident that Derek Carr and Pete Carmichael are going to work out together. Remember when we were wondering what restaurant you bring Carr out to try to close the deal? I think we said maybe Commander, some other places. Do you know where they ended up going? Solid spot. Anybody want to take any guesses? Danny, New Orleans boy. Where would you take a quarterback free agent?
Cajun.
It was in Mississippi. I mean, Mississippi. It was in Mid-City. Man, it was in Mid-City. I'm gonna say Mr. John's.
Cannon's restaurant.
Yeah, I mean, you should have if you really want to land a free agent. If you take Odell Beckham to the Cannon, it's a guarantee he's going to sign with you.
Tell me, Dan.
They would know. They used to work there.
I know.
Back in the day. Where do you think you took
Dark
him?
times.
Superior?
I chose Desi Vegas as my spot.
Okay.
But,
Desi Vegas, isn't bad.
I know he didn't go there. I forgot where he went.
Ralph's in the Park.
That I knew something.
Solid dude, right by City Park, right? It's a great location. Not too fancy.
Mm-hmm.
Like kind of like a little in between.
Nothing wrong with that.
Seems like they loved it, man. Part of the reason why they closed the deal. Probably not the biggest reason. The biggest reason was meeting with Allen and Carmichael.
That sounds the biggest reason.
Apparently, he shares an agent with Ian Book, and he talked to Drew Brees, and so everybody was all in on selling Derek Carr on bringing his talents down.
That's the one thing that does give me hope that it's going to work out, is because of how they pursued him.
Yeah,
this is this is the only thing I can theorize of why the Saints could produce and Carr couldn't, was that the Saints system is so safe and so in a bubble that they were basically forced to produce. That it was so like controlled that whoever was in there was just going to produce those numbers. That's the only thing I can think of. And that the Raiders offense, well, and okay, here's another. Okay, here we go. I think I might have figured it out. My brain is churning. If Josh Jacobs was running as good as he was running, then Carr wouldn't have had to throw, right? So since Kamara, no one was running for the Saints, so all those yards had to go to the quarterbacks. So maybe that's why the quarterbacks with the Saints had more yards and all that stuff than Carr did, because you're not accounting for whatever it was, 1,800 yards of Josh Jacobs' offense. That might be it. What did it take me? 3 minutes? With my brain churning, 3 minutes to figure it out? Whew. Neither one of them said anything about Josh Jacobs having a big chunk of those yards. I'm on a whole nother level.
No question about it. They knew who they wanted. They were open to trading for Derek Carr. They were going to give up an asset for Derek Carr. So that does get you excited in the fact that they think that can be the quarterback in their system that can unlock their offense.
Yeah.
So that
make no mistake about it either, ladies and gentlemen. This is Dennis Allen's like security blanket. This isn't just his guy. This isn't just like Dennis Allen picked this person. Dennis Allen picked Derek Carr with his job on the line. He is desperate. You know how like you always want to bet on a team who has to win? You want to bet on a team who's facing elimination? That's a very normal thing in sports gambling. It's happening right now in college basketball. Teams that aren't going to get into the tournament unless they win their conference tournament, you want to bet on those teams, right? Sure. Dennis Allen, his back is against the wall. You think Dennis Allen wants to continually just have losing season after losing season after losing season as a head coach? Hell no, he doesn't. No. So who's he go to? Who does he turn to try and fix his career? Derek Carr. So Dennis Allen, like, that gives me reason to believe this could work, because this front office or this coaching staff, whatever, they're desperate. They're not just like willy-nilly saying like, yeah, let's just roll the dice with this guy. They're saying like, we have to make it work with this guy.
That can get you excited about it. But also, like, if we're going to bring up numbers like that, we got to bring up numbers like I just did.
Yeah,
so
I love those numbers. I mean,
I think it's disrespectful to the three quarterbacks that did it, though.
I don't. I feel comfortable saying Derek Carr is better than Andy Dalton.
But we could have the argument Andy Dalton had the 9th best quarterback rating, and Derek Carr was 24th. So, like, numbers are numbers. Like, we could trade jabs all day long. We're not going to know if it's going to work out. We can both have our opinion if it's going to
Andy Dalton
or not.
on offense that scored 18 points a game.
Okay.
No game-winning drives.
What was Vegas?
No game-winning drives. I'm actually looking it up right now.
A lot of things need to be better regardless. O-line needs to be better. Running game needs to be more efficient.
Yeah, but where's it all start?
True. But still. You had the analogy we made on Handy's show is, is market value for a house, right? Same thing. People are upset with the price tag. You got to find somewhere to live.
Yeah, we moved past that.
Yeah, everybody needs.
I don't see why people are upset about the price tag. I mean, now that it's worked out the way it worked out, price tag's fine. I think the price tag we've seen, like, okay, is pretty solid. Everything's cool. I mean, we did not overpay. I can tell you that. We may have underpaid, honestly.
To get over the price tag. Now it's about whether you think Derek Carr is going to be good or not.
Right.
Like,
yes.
It's actually a good deal according to the market. Like that is objective fact.
I'm not mad
you can't
at the
really
deal.
argue about that.
Yeah.
It's just whether or not you actually think Derek Carr is going to be any good or not.
They have to help him out. Whoever it is, they had to help him out in the running game. The running game for the Saints last year was awful.
Oh, terrible.
Not bad, not okay.
Yeah, it was terrible. I mean, it was downright bad. I mean, no doubt about it. The scheme, the style, all that stuff was just atrocious. I mean, it really was. And I kind of agree with how Jacob's approaching this whole thing. He's saying, like, look, the deal is done. Carr's the quarterback. We can say what we want to say. We are not going to know until he plays, and it doesn't matter until he plays. Like, I agree. All the Stafford comps, all the whatever, like all that stuff, it really doesn't matter because everything kind of washes out. All the numbers are pretty comparable, no matter how you slice it. So at this point, is put up or shut up. And we're either going to, on one hand, you're either going to know exactly who Derek Carr is. That's one thing. The person who has the most to lose in this, I think, is Derek Carr. If Derek Carr comes in here and we don't win the division and we win 7 games and we look the same, then you know who Derek Carr is. And all the apologists who are saying it was the defense, it was the offensive line, it was the refs, it was the this, it was the that, all those people are going to know. Just like the Jameis Winston people know. All the people that was like, oh, if Jameis just got a chance, Jameis just needs to be a starter. And now those people are like, okay, I mean, you know, we gave him 2 years, he got hurt, it just didn't work. Threw for 120 yards a game, you're like, okay, it's over, right? So, yeah, I mean, the time for all these like algorithms with these numbers and all this stuff, like you can find arguments on both sides if you look at the stats deep enough. That's how stats work. But there aren't stats like for why he didn't perform better last year. Because you got to take the defense out of that. You know, like Jacob's argument against T-Bob's, like T-Bob's saying he's just better. I just know he's a better quarterback. Well, if that's the case, why was he bad last year compared to the Saints quarterback trio? Like, why? Right? Like, did he not understand McDaniel's offense? Was that it? Was the McDaniel's offense just so complex that Carr couldn't pick it up? Is that it? If that's the case, that's not great. Like, how do we know then that he'll pick up this system? You know, there's got to be something there, and we'll know one way or the other. But you know, it has kind of come to shove.
It was awful. Like, it was something where you did not get big plays. You couldn't count on it at all.
Yeah.
And you're going to be probably without Alvin Kamara
For 6 games.
You got to figure that out, because it doesn't really matter outside of about 3 guys in the NFL who the quarterback would be if you don't figure that portion of it out.
So, I agree with you there. And again, Tajay Spears makes a lot of sense. But any young running back. But the Raiders were 12th last year in scoring. Saints were 22nd. But, I mean, the Raiders had way better weapons. 12th. Saints were 22nd.
12th.
The Raiders averaged 23 a game. Saints averaged 19. But, again, Raiders had way better weapons. So, like, it's whatever. If you really want to go out of your way to just explain away everything and be like, this is why Derek Carr's in a bad spot last year, and this is why he'll be in a better spot this year, and this is why maybe the Saints offense wasn't as dynamic as you wanted last year. The company line that the Saints are seeding out there, it feels like in the universe, and people who are pro Derek Carr, the whispers that they are putting out there is that last year there was kind of a lack of trust in some of the quarterbacks, and so the quarterbacks didn't have a ton of and Andy probably obviously had more of this, I think, than Jameis did, given his more veteran.
But that's another wrinkle in that. If they didn't have any trust last year, then how did they outperform Carr? Because then it's like, well, what would they have done with trust? Would Dalton and company thrown for 4,500 yards? You know, if you're telling me, like, yeah, man, they just didn't really trust the quarterbacks. Yep, no running game. Everything was shit. Oh, but they outproduced Derek Carr. How's that happen? Is anyone else as confused as I am with that?
In nature, but they're saying that, well, last year we couldn't do the same thing we did.
I mean, really, I don't want to keep harping on this, but really think about this. On A, you have a top 5 receiver in the NFL. A, you have an offensive-minded head coach. A, you have the league leader in rushing. B, you have a defensive-minded head coach. You have not a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. You have absolutely no running game at all. You have less points per game. You have multiple quarterbacks rotating. You have no trust in the quarterbacks. And somehow that outproduced A. How could that have possibly happened? And how could that possibly happen? And then you take the quarterback from A, bring him to B, and you're like, oh man, he's going to kill it over here. That just does not add up.
With Breeze, where it was like, oh, we're going to give you 3 plays and we want you to take command, right? We're going to have these dot meetings. Those were gone last season, and they believe Derek Carr can be that guy. They're also out here saying that, with Josh McDaniel, he wasn't like that. He wanted it all to be very rigid and his way, very structured. And Derek Carr generally thrives when he's empowered to make decisions and put the pieces in place. I don't know if any of that's true. I'm just reporting it because that's what people are talking about.
T-Bob, what if I tell you this? Okay, so Derek Carr, let's go week 14, throws for 137 yards. All right, week 15 throws for 231. Week 16 throws for 174. Gets benched.
Yeah.
They've got to play the San Francisco 49ers and the Kansas City Chiefs, a team that won the Super Bowl and a team that was in the NFC Championship game.
They get better.
Jarrett Stidham.
Yeah.
Threw for 365.
Stidham lights it up.
Against the 49ers. He threw for 220 against the Chiefs.
Damn. 365 against the Niners. Insane. You're not going to. I mean, last year was bad. I'm done
so I'm
trying
saying,
to
like,
defend last year.
I'm
not
saying
worried
for it to be like a only blame Josh McDaniels conversation.
Oh, well, I think that no. I mean, look, I think again, like I said, that is everything I just relayed is grain of salt information, because it is all information that covers up all the blemishes of one side while assigning all blame to the other. Right? Any collaborative relationship, the results are.
That's the problem with stats. The problem with stats is that you can easily twist them to both sides of the argument, and in this situation, like. They are glaringly there. I mean, I've made them both. I've made on both sides. I've laid out that Derek Carr is whatever. He's 15 games under 500 in his career. Like all that stuff. Like all that stuff is true. And you all you can do is say, kind of create these excuses. But in 6 months, we're gonna know.
Product of the collaboration. So it is both guys. But. If I was putting on my lawyer hat and I'm just trying to argue for the side that is saying that it was all Josh McDaniels' fault, I would say that, well, yes, you have a veteran in Derek Carr. Josh McDaniels tried to force him into situations that he was not pleased with. Like I said, he's a control guy, right? Didn't want to empower his client to have that control. He wanted the control, and it's much easier to control a rookie quarterback a la Stidham, where a veteran like Carr, young quarterback like Stidham, whereas a veteran like Carr was struggling to adjust to the tighter yoke of the more rigid McDaniels. Again, I don't know if any of that's true, but I also don't give a damn that Jarrett Stidham threw for like 365 yards, because I don't think Josh McDaniels is good. There's been nothing in Josh McDaniels' head coaching history that should convince me that he's good. He was good with...
But, like, there's nothing that should convince you that Dennis Allen is good. Josh McDaniels certainly has a better resume than Dennis Allen. Josh McDaniels as a head coach, for what it's worth, won a playoff game with Tim Tebow. All right, I mean, Josh McDaniels was I know he wasn't the head coach, but he's a healthy part of all those Patriot offenses. So I would have a whole lot more faith in Josh McDaniels developing a quarterback and Josh McDaniels running an offense or instilling an offense than Dennis Allen and Pete Carmichael. I mean, I don't know. This what we're watching right here is a microcosm of, or not a microcosm, but we're seeing on the left, on T-Bob's side, we have just blind optimism that Derek Carr is good and Derek Carr will be better and the Saints will be better with Derek Carr. Just blind, he's better, thus the Saints have to be better. I don't know why. I have nothing to back me up that proves that. I'm just saying it. And then Jacob is the side that's basically like, well, yeah, but all of this data doesn't back up that he actually is better. So why would you think he's better? And those two sides just clash, because one is rooted in numbers and data, and then one is rooted in he's just better and he's going to be better, and that you can't quantify that.
Tom Brady, great. I don't know. I guess he was pretty good with Mac Jones, actually.
Pretty good with that.
There's that.
Kyle Orton had that first year in Denver where he played pretty well under Josh McDaniels.
Man, Kyle Orton.
I didn't mean to ask that like Ron Burgundy.
If you can hear us, come say what's up one day.
Yeah, like there's like a rumor that he lives here.
I know, and I feel bad putting it out there. I'm not trying to dox anyone. I don't know if he did.
I mean, nobody's gonna bother.
It's almost like an urban myth at this point. Since college, I've been here.
All right, I guess the music outro means this is about to end. I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of torn on this. I mean, I think they both bring up good arguments. I think we've talked about every single side of the Derek Carr stuff. There is a lot to both. I mean, honestly, there's a lot to both sides of this, and there's a lot to, that he's just an average guy, and there's a lot to, hey, maybe he was held down by McDaniels, and maybe he's about to thrive. I don't know. We're about to find out. Let me know in the comments below, ladies and gentlemen, what you think. Thank you very much for T-Bob and Jacob to drop this video so that we can react to it, and I could bless all of you with this on a Friday. Enjoy your weekend, ladies and gentlemen. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. I will see you on the next video.